We're here today with Amy Hood talking about her book, Quieting the Chaos by Learning to Lean. It has a lot about her story and her journey. But first, Amy, before you tell us about your book, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So yeah, talk to us about your book, about yourself, and I'm imagining that in that you'll weave in even how you came about writing this book as well.
Um, I'm from the South and lived here all my life. Um, Never ever dreamed of writing a book. In fact, first paper I wrote in college, I took it to the tutoring center and it was balled up and thrown in the trash because they said I need to start over. So writing a book was farthest from my mind ever. Um, and sharing my story was even further from my mind because you know you, we lived in an area and during a time when mental health was not something that was discussed, and it was something that I almost felt ashamed of having. And there's been many times that I've been angry because I suffer from it.
Mm.
But I faced a number of trials in my life. And most recently, over the past 6, 7 years, my parents were ill. I took care of them. I worked, and it was just really demanding and hard on me. And after they both passed, I went through a real dark time and was deeply depressed. Um, and finally, about a year after my mom, who passed last, after she had passed, um, I just hit a brick wall and I could no longer go physically, mentally, emotionally. And without even knowing it, I called out to my siblings because I didn't answer the phone one night. And that was a sign, usually, that I was struggling when I wouldn't even answer the phone. And so, out of concern, as always, my sister came to check on me. And I realized that night how bad I was. When she walked in the door, I just fell in her arms and said, I need you, please don't leave me. So that's kind of how I got to the point of where I was. And I started therapy, some treatment or outpatient treatment. And during that time, I was encouraged to write about what I was feeling. And uh, my counselor therapist at that time, she continued to make comments about my writing, how good it was, and then she would make comments about how my story was very inspiring and how she felt it would help others. And I am very much about helping others. I've taught for over 20 years, and now I'm in a college setting, but it's something I've always been drawn to do, is to help others, especially those who struggle with disabilities or conditions that others don't understand. And I'm of the essence of I don't have to understand something to accept it and to be empathetic and compassionate to people that have it. So that's kind of how I got started in this whole process. It was just a list of journals of ideas that would come to my mind while I'd be outside cutting grass or something. And it almost became that I was a new person, like a child. And I was finding out what I liked and what I wanted to do because so much of my life had been around what I was told I should do.
Mm.
And so I thought, if after I saw the progress I went through and how much better I felt, I truly felt that if I could help one person have hope that it can get better and that things can change, then it was worth, as the kids say, putting my business on the street.
Mhm.
It was scary, very
Mhm.
scary, and it still is because my biggest fear is judgment. And, now I've put everything out there for everybody in the world to judge.
Yeah.
Um, but that's kind of how I got started.
So your journey went from having your first paper wadded up and thrown in the trash to your therapist encouraging you to write a book. And how long of a process, once you began writing, did it take for it to all come together into this book?
Well, I went through outpatient therapy for probably about 4 months, and then I went into a program of dialectal behavioral therapy, which was once a week. And all during that time, I was just writing journals. And then when I finally said, I'm going to do this, I'm gonna put it together. I'm gonna do it. When I sat down, it was just like it was meant to be. I just pulled journals and it just flowed, and I just put them in kind of a chronological order, and it just made itself. So I didn't do much altering to what I had already written. I may have added a little bit more to tie it all together so it could flow. But I had someone ask me one time, how did I start with telling the story and stuff? And all I know is my dad was a big storyteller. He always had stories, and it didn't matter who you were. If you went to that kitchen table in the morning time where he was sitting, he was going to tell you stories for hours. And so I just kind of picked it up from him. And I just like to talk to people about situations that have occurred, and whether they're funny or whether they're serious, I like communicating with others.
Is there anything else, any parting thoughts that you want to share with our audience, with people who will see this video about you and about your book?
I would say that I'm a walking miracle as far as the change and the transformation I made. And it's explained in the book what all I did and went through. Some people are born with sensitivity to emotions more than others, and I was. So just my internal peace that I have now is so wonderful. For 47 years, I haven't felt that. There's been nothing but chaos inside of me. And so now I have a peace, and it's contributed to learning to lean into the fear that comes with change.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing a little bit about your story, your journey, for being vulnerable through your book, and hope to bring hope to those who might read it. You can grab a copy if you know somebody who would be interested in this, you yourself want to engage and hear more about Amy's story. You can grab a copy online through Amazon, through Barnes & Noble. It's also available as an ebook through iTunes and those platforms as well. But I would challenge you, encourage you, get out there and grab a copy of her book. Thank you so much, Amy, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.